the closest, but I don't think. I mean, obviously, Canelo's contract was the highest ever recorded, so I just don't know why he just didn't go by himself, and like Mayweather did, and said, "Look, I can do this myself." Obviously, Mayweather had Al Heyman behind the scenes and monkeying with some of the strings to make it happen, but I don't know why Canelo gets himself involved with all these contracts and promotional companies that he could easily say, "This is who I want to fight," do it himself under his own banner. He controls everybody he wants to fight, and it's just a matter of making the deal with the other promotional company. So he can cross every single promoter line that he wants to and fight the best of the best, so long as his attorneys can agree with the other promotion's attorneys to make it happen. Instead, you put the third party in there that's only really a middleman that's not doing anything to negotiate the contract, because you have a guaranteed contract anyway. You know what you got to make. So there's no benefit to Golden Boy to go outside of its normal roster of fighters or making little side deals with Eddie Hearn or whomever to fight Rocky Fielding or Billy Joe Saunders or whatever it may be.
And the zone doesn't even benefit if they put a freeze on Golden Boy until this thing's worked out, because then they don't really have no boxing outside of Matchroom, right, in the States.
Correct. So that's why was Canelo always fighting Matchroom guys up to that point. So,
right.
What message does this send to fighters?
The message it sends to fighters is look at your contracts and figure out everything you need to do, and then figure out who the other guy is. So, I mean, I deal with enough fighters that I look at their contracts and see, number one, they're either way lopsided. So, yeah, your manager, your trainer is doing absolutely nothing to move your career, but you signed a contract that didn't have a guaranteed number of fights per year clause in it. So your manager doesn't have an obligation to even get you a fight. Now all you can do is say, look, I want to enter negotiations with you to do what you're supposed to do and get me lined up. And I mean, if they come to me and the guy's actually licensed, which is the number one reason why I can get out of contracts, is because the manager himself isn't even a licensed manager. If they're in the good with that, and you contracted your ability a way that you're not going to get 4 opportunities per year to fight, then you're sticking that contract out, or you got to buy your way out of it. So number one, just don't enter into something because somebody's talking to you. You got to get it with an attorney that knows what they're doing and review it and say, look, this is a basic boilerplate contract, but you want to enter these things. So you want to have a certain number of fights per year. Okay, you want to have a certain purse amount that you're going to make. You want to have in there whether or not you're going to have to sell tickets, or if the manager is going to have to sell the tickets, or what's covered and what's not. So,
I just know, I guess, industry standards sometimes at the small level, at the big level, the different. I don't know shit from Sugar Man, and I've seen some horrible fucking contracts that me, as not a lawyer, don't get past 2 pages. I'm like, wait a minute, this motherfucker ain't doing nothing, ain't responsible for nothing, ain't in charge of getting you nothing. But if you get something, they're getting their 33.
Yeah, all of a sudden, this contract is 33%, and that's got to be.
And a lot of these kids who sign, they ain't got nobody, they feel like ain't nobody rooting for them. So if, I got fucking 15, 20 grand in the bank, I'll give them 10,000 of it. They'll sign that shit. If he's an actual skilled fighter, and I got him locked in for the rest of his career, man. These kids are back against the wall. They got to do it. The rest
there's unreasonableness on both sides too, because there's a lot of fighters that say, look, I know my worth. I need $25,000 signing bonus or a $5,000 signing bonus. It's like, well, you
may never make a quarter off them, right? You're not going to get $1 ever off of them, right?
Yeah. So if you're a brand new fighter as a manager, I'm going to say, look, I'm going to do 33% because it's going to cost me $150,000 just to get you into actually making money.
Right.
So I need that 33% to try to recoup what I've expended in you at the end of the day. And then there's a lot of managers that'll take somebody on that's got 12 fights that already can make some money on some fights, or is right at the cusp that probably should be only making 20%, 15% because the potential is there and it's already kind of been seen, that I'm not going to do as much work to get you to the promised land of actually making some money in this business. So,
Joe, are you on a phone or a laptop?
I'm on a laptop.
So you can go to your phone and go to the IG and see our live video?
Yeah.
My guy is another guy, man. He's a promoter lawyer, but for MMA, like for kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
Not MMA, I guess kickboxing. I think I may be wrong, but he's also a lawyer and a promoter, and he's out there in California. And he was covering this lawsuit. I seen the video. I didn't watch all of it, but I know he tuned in. He wanted to see what we was talking about, and it seemed like he's agreeing with everything with us. But I wanted to pull him in, but I don't want to pull him in if you can't see him.
Yeah, let me get you on
the IG. Let me pull him in right fast. I want to make sure all y'all. I see man is watching our thing too. Live video. Let me see.
You just turned it off.
How the fuck did I do that? I told you, bro, my boxing guy, man. I'm learning this on the fly. But I told him, I said, man, I get you on that, man, because he's in California, and I seen, like, I could see some of his fights, you know, his martial art, his kickboxing, I think. But being a lawyer and a promoter, I always hear him talking about like shit the fighters don't do, the fighters don't come through and shit, don't get the physicals and all that type of shit. And so even though it's a different sport, it's still combat now.
Yeah, that's what everybody thinks I do is when everything falls through on these smaller fights is to just go after all these boxers, but it's just not worth it at the end of the day because the commission doesn't do anything to start with. Right. And then I'm going to spend $500 suing a kid that doesn't have $400.
That don't have a dollar worth. Yeah, you can't get up and go. He go back to job at Walmart. What's up, brother? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see all of you guys. Well, I can see mostly.
Hold on, let me.
The middle. I believe his name is Joe. How you doing, sir? I'm George.
Let me see.
And now I can see more of all of you.
Yeah, man, that's my partner over there, man. He owns the gym. He owns the gym, and we manage fighters. I bill him. Joe is a promoter and lawyer here in Houston. They got one of the biggest, I guess, promotions here in Houston. But I was telling him how you're a lawyer and a promoter, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm the only kickboxing promotion with an active pro license out here in California, and I did MMA for about a year before that, but I'm not really like a huge fan of MMA. I like kickboxing better. I like boxing better, so I did kickboxing.
Okay. You've been watching the show, huh? What you make was we pretty on par with how you look at the lawsuit, or no, or what?
I look at it kind of the same, but there are definitely some differences that I'm seeing. So for me, I mean, it's all hypothetical, right? It's all theoretical. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they settle, like counsel says, like Joe said. Maybe who knows what's going to happen? But for me, it looks to me to be an anticipatory breach of contract. It's not a breach of contract yet. He's saying it's an anticipatory breach of contract. And when that happens, I don't know how it works in Texas, but definitely in California, you have the duty to mitigate damages, which means that Canelo, if he's the non-breaching party, again, this is all according to his complaint, because like Joe says, we don't have the contracts to look at.
Right.
But it means that he's got the duty to minimize the damages. And, what other way is a fighter going to minimize damages other than fighting? right? So, I mean, my understanding of mitigating damages is, I mean, he could go fight somewhere else. So if you look at the 10th cause of action in his complaint, he's saying that he wants a judicial determination that allows him to fight for another promoter and will allow him to work with another broadcaster. So, I mean, it looks like his attorneys really laid out the foundation for this whole anticipatory damages / mitigating damages, theory. You know what I mean? So let's say he does, there's this purse bid happening on September 21st with, it looks like Al Heyman's going to be involved for the fight between Canelo and Yildirim, the Turkish guy. Yeah. So let's say Al Heyman, wins the purse bid. And, he pays Canelo $10 million or whatever it is for that fight. Well, I mean, it doesn't mean Canelo is still not entitled to whatever he's supposed to make between, him and that Golden Boy contract. It's just that he'd be mitigating the damages, right? Instead of getting $35 million, which according to him, he's owed by Golden Boy per fight for the next 10 fights. If let's say, for example, Heyman pays him 15, Golden Boy's still on the hook for 20. You guys kind of see what I'm saying there?
What you think? Joe, can somebody freeze that? Can he not fight or what?
Well, like I said, I mean, Golden Boy can try to freeze it, but if the federal judge says, yeah, you can go fight, we're going to let you do that, Golden Boy can still come back afterwards and say, look, we would have done it this way, that way, and be able to make more money off of it. So it's just going to cause more litigation and more money to the attorneys at that point, really. But I agree. I mean, he does have a duty to mitigate. It's just, will he be able to mitigate? And is it to the point where
it's a little bit of a delay?
Is it to the point where him fighting for $10 million is going to cost Canelo more money?
Yeah.
In the end, with the action, they'll be sued and stuff. Is what you're saying? It'll cost him more.
Yeah, because everybody wants, like he was saying, he's guaranteed the $35 million. Heyman's only willing to offer the 10 or the 15 or whatever.
Right.
Well, does that money go into a coffer pending the litigation at that point? Because then nobody's really making any money. You just risk your life. You just risk your life. You all have to go over to De La Hoya.
It's going to take a lawsuit regardless, maybe.
Yeah. But look, I mean, it's just like promoters now. I mean, I deal with Top Rank, matchmaker, somebody's calling me every week saying, look, your guy can't make what you would normally make off of this fight given the circumstances. Well, given the circumstances, did the punches get any lighter? Does the risk of getting hurt get any less? Because right. I don't really want to fight Elvis Rodriguez for $5,000.
So if I'm looking at my phone so you can see me, and that takes me off the screen. Let's say Canelo goes, a federal judge says he could fight for Al Heyman. He goes and they pay him $12 million.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. The federal judge might not have to say that, right? Because, like I'm saying, here in California, you got a duty. Because I think this is the reason the attorneys laid out the complaint the way they did. They made it an anticipatory breach because he's saying, hey, they haven't breached the contract yet, but I'm anticipating that they're going to breach the contract. They're not going to give me the $35 million they promised because the zone is not going to pay the $40 million license fee, and that's where the money's coming from. So you have the duty to take reasonable steps to mitigate the damages. I don't think he really has to sit around. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think he really has to sit around and wait for a judge to tell him, okay, yeah, you can go and stop the blood flow. I think he can go and maybe take a fight if he wants. And I think by him including in this lawsuit that he wants permission to fight for other promoters and for other broadcasters, he's kind of setting this whole thing up to make it look like, look, I'm trying to minimize damages for everybody. Look, I'm going to fight for somewhere else. This way, De La Hoya doesn't owe me the full 35. Do you guys kind of see what I'm saying there?
Yeah. Well, what Canelo's attorneys should really do is to look into whether or not the contract with De La Hoya is illusory, meaning like an illusion, because he never had the money to pay in the first place.